Because partner could also mean anything. Partner could mean wife. Partner could also mean a friend. Partner could just mean somebody that you have some common understanding with.
The motherland, the African man. Long as I'm alive, I'ma make a plan. Strongholds to break, got long walks to take, got no votes to make. We don't bet, we pray. Hey, African man, yeah. The African male iris through the eye of an African male.
So I'll encourage you to please, speak freely, speak boldly. So that we can actually have a good show. So, welcome back to the second part of the African Male Iris live podcast right here at OTG Bar out in Polshof. This is where we've created an awesome platform for us to speak as men, grow one another, school one another, laugh together, cry together, and of course just make each other better people and to also build a better future for our kids, our wives, our families. And even if you're single, it's fine. We want to help you become a better man. So let's take it back to the table. Tima, let's pick up with you if you have a burning question. Actually, no, let's start with the floor. Let's start with the floor. If you have a... Okay.
Oh, yeah.
It's good I was standing here, hey? Awesome. Your name, please, and if you just kindly please stand so that we can really catch you on camera. Whilst you're standing and getting comfortable, you can follow us, by the way, on the socials at the African Male Iris all across the boards.
Thank you, Leroy. Thank you, guys. This one. You spoke about, what did you speak? That love is about extending yourself, right? So my question was like, you also spoke about loving someone as they are, but you also talk about extending yourself. So my question is to the male. There are some who drink too much, but you love them. So you're telling them, please cut down a bit. So the question is, am I turning him into something he's not? Or is he also coming to the level of us having a healthy relationship? Thank you.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much. What's your name again? Yolanda. Thank you. That's a really good question. Sean, I'll send this to you and then we'll put it out there as well. By the way, if you also feel comfortable to answer the question on the floor, you're welcome to answer the question, especially if you have a drinking partner. Sean.
Okay. Is this on? Yeah. Okay, so it's tricky because we're actually in an establishment that sells alcohol, ne?
And everyone's got a drink.
And everyone's got a drink, and I'm thinking, will they like what I have to say? So I'm going to answer it in a two-pronged manner, right? So I'll answer it from a science basis and then from a love basis. So the science is clear, and you can go and find these studies if you doubt what I'm going to say. There is actually no benefit that accrues to anyone because of drinking. No benefit at all. It's just that it's something we've been socialized into doing, so yeah, people do it. So it depends on a number of things, and I'll pack the science and go to the other side. It depends on a number of reasons, right? Number one, when he drinks, what is it that you don't particularly like after he has drank? Is it his behavior? Is it just the fact that you just think it's too much? His behavior.
Talk well. Now he can't. It's his behavior generally.
Yeah.
He talks too much, or he wants to be the center of attention. Like let's say you're at a gathering, he wants to be the center of attention.
Yeah.
He wants. Let's say someone tells him this, he wants to be like, I know it all.
Yeah.
And if you are against him, you are against him. Even if you're talking something that makes sense,
Yeah.
but he feels like, no, you must go according to what I'm saying.
Okay.
You understand?
Okay.
There was the other time, we were at a party and people were like asked to select songs that they like. So everyone was selecting and people were dancing. So this other lady selected a boring song. Then he stood up like, no, you can't select, but everyone was given a chance. And then he shouted until they switched off the TV. So, yeah.
Okay, so it's bordering on the embarrassing side now, no? So definitely when it's like that, then I think it's about having a conversation to say, dude, this is who you become when you drink. And this is what I'm unhappy with, right? It's the way that you actually lose control of your mental faculties, but also even behaviorally. You're making other people uncomfortable. You're making me uncomfortable. And with the hope that we actually also understand, again, guys, I spoke of patterns. It may very well be that alcoholism runs in the family. So don't expect, and this is just a caution to all the ladies, please stop thinking you're a therapist and you're going to turn a man into a project. You do not have the capability. If his mother failed, who are you? Whomst are you? But the long and short of it is about having conversations, making it clear that, listen, it's uncomfortable. You don't like the person that he becomes when he has actually... The trick, though, is in this. When you raise an issue, make it about you. Don't make it about the other person. So if I get up and then I say, yeah, you know, when you drink, you embarrass me, and ego defense mechanisms kick into play because human beings are made that way. If you feel attacked, you defend yourself. So make it about you. Love, when you drink, I feel as though you don't pay particular attention to me. 1, 2, I also worry about your safety when you've drank, because you lose your bearings a lot of the times. You get into needless fights with people. You're making it about you and how you feel. So that way, he's not going to feel as though you're attacking him or his personality. So that's one. And then on the love part, the hope would be that he actually realizes that, again, like I said, there's no benefit that accrues to drinking. But the hope would be that he loves you enough to be willing to make changes. And now here's the thing. It's not about waking up one day and just stopping the drinking. It doesn't work that way. Drinking is addictive in nature, right? So it takes time for it to get out of somebody's system. So maybe let's start by reducing the amount of drinking. If he drank 24 Castle Lights, maybe then let's reduce it to maybe 12. And then we eventually go back to a space where we can only drink socially or occasionally. And one of our sponsors sells alcohol. Please buy Castle Light.
Let's give it up for Sean.
So it's essentially about that, right? But it's also about understanding relationships are also about making each other better. Now, there's a difference between changing someone and making someone better, right? Because all of that is in connection with what you're trying to build. So sit down, write down what your vision for the relationship is, where you're trying to take it, and then give each other specific roles. And also then find the areas of improvement. What do you have to improve on for you to become the person that would make me the happiest? What do I need to improve upon to become the person that would make you the happiest? Once we approach it from that angle, it stops being about you're trying to change me, you're attacking my personality, etc. But if you have studied his pattern, ladies, study the patterns of the families where your husbands come from. Men, study the patterns of the women, of the families where your woman comes from. If it's a pattern you've picked up, maybe it's something you ought to discuss with him. Dude, do you realize all of your uncles are drunkards? All of them ended up losing their jobs, for example, or all of them are actually not doing anything productive as a result of the alcoholism. Don't you think it's a pattern that's actually running in your family or running in the bloodline? And I want to say this as I close this comment. If you look at the patterns, understand that whatever it is that happens in your bloodline, you are highly susceptible to it. So I made a decision, and I'm not afraid to give myself as an example. I realized when I looked at my uncles, when I looked at my dad himself, all of the male figures in my family, all of them become successful business-wise, etc. They lose everything because of two things. Number one, alcohol. Number two, women. So I made a decision from an early age that I would not fall into the same pattern. So I actually do not drink. I believe I was born drunk, so that's why I don't drink at all. Now, this is not to pronounce judgment on those that do. As long as your drinking is controlled, as long as it's not you using it as a coping mechanism. Because sometimes it actually becomes our form of escapism and we don't even know it. So study your patterns. If alcoholism runs in your family, please be mindful of the amount of drinking you're doing.
Take a sip. Thank you so much, Sean. That's awesome. Thank you. Just before we take the next question, is there anybody, and this is a very honest and serious question, maybe if you're here, maybe you need help, maybe you know you can relate even as a man to say, you know what, that is me. The guy she's describing. I think all of us know this guy. Either an uncle, a brother, a friend. We all know this guy. I have such a member in my, well, I had actually. I'm so glad he stopped drinking. But you know, my uncle was one of those people who, like, if it was a Christmas gathering, the moment he stood up, everyone was like, yo. But when he was sober, the nicest guy you've ever met in your life. You know, so if there's anybody here and you can relate to this and you're almost feeling like, yeah, actually that does sound like me. And maybe you need some help and you feel like, yeah, I need to adjust this drinking problem in my life. Please do stay behind. Sean is here. We can have a chat and we can also guide you and show you in the right, and help you and point you in the right direction to get you the necessary help to be a better man, especially when it comes to alcohol abuse, because I think it is a big issue. And even, you know, it opens up other doors to, you know, child, you know, abusing your family, beating up your wife, those kind of things, you know. I think it leads into those things. So if you have that challenge, please stay behind. Let's have a chat together so that we can help you. And that's one of the main reasons why we've created this platform. We don't want to just talk about it and just leave you out there in the cold. Stay behind, let's have a chat. Let's see how best we can help you. Is that all right? I was waiting for an amen there. I sounded like I'm in church for a second.
I think I'll just come in a bit. I wanted to direct this question to Sean. I think we've had a lot of discussions around men's mental health.
Yep.
And I would just like, Sean, from your perspective as a therapist,
Yep.
what would you advise us men on how to deal with mental health issues in general?
Such an important topic because the stats show us how there's such a grim picture, especially when it comes to men. The South African Anxiety and Depression Group posits that men in South Africa are 3.5 times more likely to die from suicide than women. So that just goes to show you how mental health on the part of men is so important. And then you hear statements such as, well, men don't talk, right? So that's why nobody's helping them. I have a different understanding of it, and I'll address your question just now. I am of the firm belief that society has not trained itself to hear the cries of men. What do I mean by this? A majority of us as men are actually raised by women. A lot of the time, single women, if we're fortunate, we're in a complete household where there's a mother and a father. It's the same women, not all of them, but some of the women that teach us things such as boys don't cry. You've heard that before, right? Or probably if you're a guy in here, you were told that when you were growing up. Boys don't cry, you must toughen up, etc. And what that does is that we then we fail to find spaces where we can be vulnerable. So we then start believing that being hard, being cold, and just being an individual that is not expressive is essentially being a man. So having said that, it's important for us to understand what mental health itself is in the first place. Mental health is important in the sense that it affects how you think, how you act, how you behave. So it's the sum total of all of the things that you do, a sum total of all of the things that you do as an individual, right? Okay. So it's the sum total of every single thing you do as an individual. You can't hear us.
Well, just hang on.
Okay.
It's a good point. We don't want to miss this, right?
Okay. So I was describing mental health, and I was saying it's important in the sense that mental health essentially determines what you think, how you act, how you behave, how you relate with the people around you, how you handle stress, and how you manage the pressures that are thrown your way. So as a man, it's important to build community. You've heard of things such as the Men's Forum, and people laugh when we speak of the Men's Forum, but it's actually an important initiative. This particular podcast is an example of important platforms where men get to express themselves without the fear of judgment, where we come because we have singularity of mind sometimes, but also because our struggles are the same. So we need safe spaces where men can speak out and be heard and not be judged, number one. Number two, society needs to train itself to hear the cries of men. When a guy drives home and spends 20 minutes in the car, parked in the garage before getting to the house, that's actually a cry for help. You're thinking, mhlambe he's texting Utandiwe, kanti we. No, he just wants some space where there is silence, where he can breathe without the pressures that come with being a man. I'm not saying there are no pressures that come with being a woman, right? I'm speaking on behalf of males. So that's a cry for help. Men also, by the way, we cry a lot in the showers. The guys won't tell you though, but we do cry in the showers. So the whole notion that men don't cry, boys don't cry, it's a fallacy. We reach out for help in different ways. Sometimes the way that we take risks is us actually a cry for help. The way we engage in risky behavior, whether it's promiscuity, whether it's me going bungee jumping without actually a code that keeps me safe, whether it's me driving 300 kilometers an hour, sometimes we're seeking that thrill, but it's actually essentially because there's something missing somewhere that you have not addressed. So men cry out for help in different ways. So I want to say this then to all the women in the house. Your creator, whomever you deem your creator to be, gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. You are supposed to listen twice as much as you speak. Shall I repeat that?
Yes. Yes. Repeat.
I don't think I heard you at the back. Would you please say that again?
Thank you. So you are given 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. You're supposed to listen twice as much as you speak. Now, there is what we call active listening, right? Many of us fail at it. Many of us listen to respond. So even before somebody has actually finished opening up to you, already you have a response. Yeah, when you're like that because of your brother, you're just like your brother. Hear me out first. Consider what I'm saying. From time to time, check in on how I'm feeling as well, because feelings, unfortunately, apply to everyone. Even plants have feelings. Did you know that? Plants have emotions. Did you know that? So how much more a living, breathing human being? So men have emotions, men have feelings, and the problem then becomes that society itself, the way that it has treated us is such that when men show vulnerability, then you're told, yeah, you're weak. And a lot of the times, where do those comments come from? From women, right? So essentially what you're saying to me then is that you're not prepared to listen to me. So guess what I do? I start internalizing everything. And guess what then happens? Because there's inner turmoil, because I don't have an outlet, there's no pressure valve. I start boiling on the inside, I become aggressive. All of this domestic violence you're seeing, part of it is essentially because we have not trained ourselves as men to express ourselves, 1, but also 2, society has not trained itself to hear the cries of men. So we both need to take responsibility and help each other out in that respect. I hope you're answered there.
All right. Yeah, that sounds great. Sorry. That sounds awesome. All right. We just want to take a question at the back there quickly. You were supposed to come on just before this, but let's come back to you. Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, please stand up so we can see you in your full boldness. Speak boldly. Pun intended.
Hi, everyone. I actually have, sorry guys, I'm a sucker for conversation, so I'm going to milk this time for great minds gathering. I'm going to milk as much. I have 3 questions, but I won't ask all of them now. I'll just ask one for now, and then you'll come again to get the other one. So this question is to the married folks. Does it get easier with years or steeper with time? And the reason I'm asking, I was having a conversation with Bunini to say, as a single person, it's easy to tap out if, like, one go, one mistake. My tolerance for nonsense is very limited, and I have nothing to lose to walk away. But for married folks, it's harder to just say I'm out. So does it get easier? And this is for me to take notes for when I do get there, because the question I've asked myself is, if I keep walking out, when I do get married, what's going to happen? How many times am I going to divorce the person? So does it get easier with time, or does it get steeper and you need to be stronger? That's question number 1.
Awesome. Before we take this to the top there, I would like to actually open this question to the floor, because we do have happily married people in the building. So I'd like us to go to the couples and let's have a chat with people. I'll do this. Let's see. Who's been married the longest? Let's go to that lovely couple. Lovely. You put your hand up first. So I'm assuming you're like, everyone else, you are lighties here. Lighties in this game. Bring that mic here. So does it get easier with time, or does it get actually a bit harder? That's a bit of a tricky one.
and I made an assumption that we've been married the longest, but maybe not.
It's okay.
There was something that was said about love, and I think there are misconceptions around what love is. Yeah. And I think that's where the problem is, because does life get easier? So why do we look at marriage as something that should get easier? And when you were talking about love earlier on, there's something I heard recently which I thought it resonated with me. And it's that love is more than a feeling, it's a decision.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we go wrong, because we're actually more tolerant with our work colleagues, with our friends, with the rest of the world than we are with our spouses. So if you're looking for it to be easy, you're looking to not do the work. And that's problematic. So that's where I would go. I think, you know, for all of us, we have siblings. If you have beef and fallouts with your siblings, you always try your best to go and make amends. But it's so quick for people to say, it's not working, let's get a divorce. Your siblings you grew up with, same family values, you were raised the same way, and you still have fallouts. Now, this person you've met halfway through your lives, why do you expect that it's just going to be chocolate and roses the whole way? Do the work.
Yeah. Thank you so much. That's awesome. I love that. I love that because a lot of the time we don't actually, in marriage, I think what becomes difficult over time is you feel as though there's a point where you get to in marriage where you feel like, I know, man, I've done the work. And it's almost you feel as though like, yeah, this thing can be an automatic now and it'll just run smoothly. But it doesn't. I look at marriage and the work in marriage, I look at it as like almost like a graph that goes like that, you know? There's the work that you do that takes you up to a level where you're running smoothly. Yeah. And, you know, that doesn't last a very long time or it doesn't last a very short time. And then eventually again, there's some work that you need to put in again if you want to go to the next level. So I think in my levels, man, in marriage.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you don't want to stay on if you don't want your marriage to be stagnant or stay on the same level, there's some work that you need to do. And that work requires one of the most difficult things in life, and that is change. Change is inevitable in marriage. Whether we like it or not, you're going to have to change the way you talk, change the way you communicate, sometimes even change the way you dress. Because, you know, for the last 6 months or the last year, you've just been wearing baggy. And it was dope at some point. But now, my dear wife, please. Like, or my dear husband, please. You know? Or maybe, like me, you know, I can eat 4 or 5 burgers and I'll stay like this for the rest of my life. But at some point, I need to train so that I can also look good for my wife. You know, put on some muscle for my wife so that when I walk past, or she's in an altercation, she'll be like, wait till my husband gets here. And I think every husband loves that line of wait till my husband gets here. And when you get there, you can't look like you can't handle. You know? And I'm like, oh, is this what we're waiting for? You are the smart boy. You know, so change is inevitable. So I agree with you. I think we need to put in the work.
Yeah.
And I think basically, I think it doesn't get easier, to be honest.
Nah.
It doesn't get easier. If anything, because of change, it doesn't get easier. Before I come to you, let's take it to the top a little bit. Let's go to Tino or Sean. I see you guys have the mic there.
So the reason why people pay top dollar, the reason why psychotherapists, therapists like myself are needed in the world is because people lie to themselves. And the number one fallacy they tell themselves is life is easy. So because they think life is easy, then when the pressure comes, when the trauma comes, they're unable to deal with the pain and the pressure. So I wish we could actually swap seats because I think you've done my job. You've said a mouthful and it's valuable advice. It doesn't get easy because life in and of itself isn't easy. And if you want to abuse yourself, lie to yourself and convince yourself that life is easy, and you'll find out how difficult it is. So life isn't easy, so by extension, then marriage doesn't become easy either. But what makes it beautiful is the willingness to put in the work. And the reason why we're seeing divorce rates go up isn't because marriage has disappeared or people don't value it as much. People are just not willing to put in the work. And they sell themselves ideas. I made mention earlier on that there's a whole sociological concept that's there where love and marriage has been romanticized. Way too much. So the second he doesn't buy flowers, maybe because he uses words of affirmation, your board of governors says to you, he's not the one. Guys who are single, ladies have a board of directors, ne? So before they agree to date you, those people analyze you, investigate you. They make some of the choices. So because we're all expecting to be swept off our feet and we're expecting roses every day, when we don't get that, then we think it's not working. But the truth of the matter is anything that is worth having should be worked hard for. You put in the work, you get the result. There's no relationship, whether we're talking a familial relationship, whether we're talking a relationship with siblings, there's no relationship that can run on autopilot. It doesn't work that way. So put in the work, and I want to end by saying this. Love is as love does. So what we mean by love is as love does is when you say you love, then the actions should correspond. Over and above that, it's as simple as this. Marriage, in my opinion, when people ask me that question, I tell them, well, it's what you make it. Because people ask, is it easy? Is it nice? And my answer is always, it's what you make it. If you put in the work, then it gets a little bit easier in as much as life is hard. If you don't put in the work and you expect ice cream every day, even when we're going through seasons that are difficult, you have not built the resilience to stay in the difficult seasons, so that relationship won't last.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Right. We've got a lady here also who's got a follow-up comment. 21 years you've been married, correct? All right. Yeah, the real Makoyas are speaking now.
I think based on what Sean has just said, and a combination what everybody has also said, your temperament defines the type of marriage that you will have.
Sorry, Leroy.
So, like you said, Leroy, this one. Yeah. Okay, like you said, change is the governing word that should define any relationship that you're in, be it in business, be in a relationship with your kids, be in a relationship with your spouse. I stand here today saying that it is easier than it has ever been in the last 20 years. Why? Like Sean has just said, one of you has to do the work. It doesn't have to be, in Sesotho we say, "Dikgomo ha di na motlo wa pele," meaning the cows don't leave the kraal at the same time. So somebody has to take the lead. And the analogy that I use in a marriage is that it's a dance. Allow yourself to be led when there's a need to be led. There is no 50-50. There will never be. That is just a big fat lie. And thirdly, like Sean said, marriage is a word, right? Two people get into it. And you two come in with your own baggages, with your own temperament, with your own decisions, with your own choices, with your own wounds. So somebody has to decide to do different for it to work.
Yeah. Oh. Thank you. Lovely. You are nodding so passionately, hey? Like I need to spend some time with that sister. All right, awesome. One more here at the back before we move on to another question. How are you, sir? Good evening. Your name, please, and please stand.
Oh, I have to stand. Hi, everyone. Brian here. I tend to agree with the last speaker. I'll qualify it. It can get easier. I think I missed a chunk of this podcast, but then I think a key point is who you're getting into the marriage with. Is it someone that you can tolerate on, when you're not 100%, when you're not smiley, happy, clappy, when they're not happy, clappy? So I guess it's that choice first, everything that builds up to that. But why I say it can get easier is if you get to a place where you can trust that person and speak to them. So as a guy speaking for myself, one of the reasons why many previous relationships before marriage didn't work was just I couldn't communicate. Like, okay, maybe I'll come across as a scrub, as not good enough or whatever. You think of all these consequences that many of them were manufactured in my own head. And then you get to a place where you're like, I've had enough. And the person's like, what do you mean? We haven't even discussed anything. Like, how is it done? Like, nothing has been said. But I've had 100 conversations in my head because I couldn't bring myself to actually articulate. So if you have someone that you can bring yourself to trust to start talking to as the partner that you have, then what gets easier is you get over the fear factor of, okay, what then is she going to say? What are the people going to say? What is going to happen afterwards? Am I going to lose them? If you are able to get to that point, and then like everything else, if you practice it, if it's a small conversation, okay, actually, you know, maybe I was thinking this, or maybe I'm not feeling so good today, just small things. If you can build the conversation aspect, if you can build a communication, then it can get easier, because then, I mean, the roadblocks we face, basically it's a point where you have to make a decision. And as a man, if I'm carrying it all by myself, then it builds and builds and builds. But if I'm able to break certain pieces of it and communicate with my partner, then it helps. Of course, there's certain things that I still struggle with. I'm not able to communicate everything 100%. That's where, you know, the Gents Forum or whatever it is, this is where these sort of things come into play. But again, be able to communicate with your partner. And I think if you can do that, then it does get easier with time. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Brian. Hey, Brian's got a great voice, eh? He's got a nice voice, eh? You do voiceovers, Brian? You do voiceovers, yeah, you can tell. He sounds like, I think I've heard him like, come to this bank. I don't want to mention any names until they come on board, you know. So if you're a bank and you're watching, come sponsor the African Male Iris. Okay, cool. You got a comment there,
Yes.
Prayer?
Do you guys think Leroy is such a great host? Please, a round of applause.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
I just wanted to say thank you so much for coming out again. The reason why we do this is because sometimes we just sit here while you guys are talking and we're like, can you believe people actually came? So we are like very excited that, you know, this is what's going on. Oh, sorry, shooter. Sorry. So we're very excited about the fact that, you know, people come out, and that's why I was actually talking to Tino, and we were. I asked Andisa, right? And I was like, oh, so who did you come with? Like, who invited you? And she said, no, and I just saw a TikTok video. I was like, what? She just saw a TikTok video and then decided to come. So, and you guys too. Wow. Oh, and you guys. Oh, wow. Nice. Okay. Yeah, I think we're gonna give prizes to those three. Yeah.
Give prizes to everybody who came here via TikTok. Like TikTok giveaways.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, with that being said, please follow us on all platforms. And I actually have one interesting question to Sean. Yep. My question is, from your experience, what would you say are the biggest assumptions that women make about men? Because I have a lot of female friends, I have sisters, cousins, and whatnot, and I'm a great listener, I'd like to think. Yeah. So they vent to me a lot, so I get to hear their perspectives and whatnot. But I always feel like there's so many things that they generalize and they assume, and so they just don't understand us. Yeah. You know, so what would those things be? Yeah.
Number one, men are not loyal.
Louder for the guys at the back.
Yeah. So one of the major assumptions is that, well, guys are not loyal. Actually, we are.
Okay.
Yeah, we are. So that's one major assumption, that men are not loyal. There's also an assumption that men do not feel pain. Like I was saying earlier on, I feel like society has not trained itself to hear the cries of men. Men actually go through the most, I want you to know, guys. And they have ways of crying. So like I indicated, either they have literal tears that happen in the shower, or when we're chilling in the car pretending to be listening to jazz music on a Sunday, our minds are going through a lot. And then what also then happens is that we cry out in many other ways. The passive-aggressive nature that we exhibit sometimes is actually a cry for help. So we do feel pain, and we worry a lot about whether we're pleasing you to the degree that you want us to. Guess what? The greatest thing that can happen is to come from a house or a relationship where your marriage or a relationship is like a base camp. So what is a base camp? Let me talk to you a little bit about mountain climbing. If you want to go summit Kilimanjaro or Everest or whatsoever, at the foot of the mountain is what is called the base camp. And that's where they store medical provisions, food, etc. So if a climber faces any kind of trouble going up the mountain trying to summit, they are brought back to the base camp. The greatest thing that would happen for any kind of man is to have a relationship that's like a base camp, where I come back from pandering out in the world, right, and trying to make it, trying to hustle, trying to make sure that I get a gig or two, make sure that I put food on the table, make sure that I follow the vision that we agreed upon. And then I come back to a house where there is peace, number one. Two, where I am understood, where I can be vulnerable, right? Because that's essentially what a base camp is. You come back, you are re-energized, you get to recalibrate, you get to decompress, and then you get the energy again to go back out into the world to do what you do. The other assumption is that men don't love affirmation or praise. We actually love it, which is why, for example, if you look at the cultures that we come from, we have entire totems that are actually praise poetry. That was meant to inspire both men and women. So when I say Gabonga Phele Zanibe, for example, you already think, oh, okay, Gabonga Phele, okay, so I do not finish, because that's what the Xhosa poetry is actually saying there. So because I do not finish, nothing can actually then press me down or depress me or push me down, because I get this praise from this particular woman. So if you don't know Isithakazelo Sendoda Yakho, it might be prudent to go and learn it, right? Again, it's a cheat code. Leroy, cheat code again. Because we do love praise. We do love feedback. But sometimes your feedback is laced with criticism. I see what you're doing, but you can do better. That's not praise, right? And that's not, in as much as it's feedback, but already because I have an ego, I'm going to defend myself. So how's about you sit me down and then say to me, listen, I see you're really trying, hey? And I'm super proud of the fact that you're putting in an effort. I know that everything hasn't gotten to the level you want yet, but I want you to know I'm here. And I will always be here throughout all of the seasons. Trust you, me, a man that knows that his woman is there through all of the seasons is a man that's motivated, is a man that's committed by extension, and is a man that's driven. Because we can't help it. We're wired that way. We're wired to protect. We're wired to provide. And once I know that this person is loyal through all of the seasons that life is going to take me through, automatically my commitment to you goes to 1,000%. So that assumption that men don't like praise is also wrong. The one assumption that's there, that's very correct. Yes, men love sex. We love it. Give it to us. Very, very important.
Please.
Please say that again.
Before you carry on, let's just clap hands to that. This is your moment, chicks.
So that's the one assumption that women have, but they don't understand why. So let me try and understand the why part. Apart from it being spiritual, it's also a way of actually healing. Why? Because when I'm vulnerable with you and intimate with you in that space, and I'm doing the thing, and you're calling out Isithakazelo during the deed, what is happening? Again, admiration, praise, appreciation, acknowledgement, right? So I'm getting, my confidence levels are going there. They get to stratospheric levels, right? But guess what? It's another cheat code. When there is intimacy, and I know intimacy is not limited to sex, but when there is intimacy in the form of sex, I actually have a theory that says, if we make love enough, there's no way we're gonna fight. So if we actually make it a policy, dude, I'm upset with you. Come, I want to sleep with you right now.
Right now.
We are going to solve it vertically. Automatically, guys. Are you going to give me silent treatment? No ways, right? So sometimes we make it difficult for ourselves by failing to understand sex is a physiological need. Men will die if they don't get it, so please.
Yes! That is true. I almost died.
Yeah.
I almost died.
So I would say say that's the one assumption. That's the one assumption that women have that's actually correct. And guess what? It actually makes us soft as well, right? Because if I have now done the deed and I've relieved myself, there's no need for any aggression, is there?
Yeah.
Why would I be aggressive? So if we actually solve our problems that way, hey, come here, the sodium levels are high. That's why you're being aggressive. Come here.
Thank you, Sean. Let's give it up for Sean. I love that. That's really awesome. Yeah, sex is critical, guys. Just to reiterate that. I missed everything else you said. No, I'm kidding. All right, so from some of the most mature couples in the house to just assuming this is like the youngest couple. They look so young and beautiful. They look so fresh. You know, you can tell they're having sex regularly. Yeah, you can look at the way they're sitting. Look at these guys have been married for a while. They're sitting like this. What? Who fresh? Like, sit here. It's my girl, this one. All right, you had a comment, brother.
Hi, everyone. Okay. First of all, I mean, we probably are the youngest couple here. But before I go to my question, I just wanted to maybe add to the question that the lady posed. And it made me think of our personal experience. And maybe this gives a perspective. Because I agree, there's, like, life is a challenge, right? So why would marriage actually be different, right? You know, in our first years, you know, being married, you start to almost, you know, see the differences, right, between us. Her coming from her background, me coming from my background. And I always make this example. For instance, when she used to iron my shirts, right, I have a certain way where I put the shirt. I have to fold it a certain way, and I use the ironing board a certain way because I use the corners to kind of, you know, to kind of help me guide, you know, iron the shirt. That's how I was taught. So when she comes in, yeah, we're pekula and just irons the way she irons, right? And for a minute, like in the beginning of our relationship, those kind of things would pop up, right? Where even dishes, I use the two sinks. The one sink is there for me to rinse. The other one is there for me to wash. She uses a middle sink to wash, and then she uses the other one, right, to rinse, and then moves on the other one. So it's quite disorienting, like, because this is how you are brought up. But over time, you get over yourself. What was the point? The point was for the shirts to be ironed, not how it was ironed. And I think, thank you. So it does get better, but the moment you get over yourself, and I think a good point was raised when this lady spoke. Does he love you enough to get over a certain issue? Because sometimes we let certain issues in our relationship, you know, take charge of, you know, the relationship as opposed to the love, the essence of what is meant to keep us going. Yeah. So now let me go to my question.
Young and fresh.
So you spoke a mouthful, and I think you're so profound in the way you've articulated yourself and just responded to all the questions. And for me, like there's something you've been drilling in as you've been speaking, which is, you know, getting to know the person, right? And I thought about this in the context of, you know, in today's, you know, environment, you'll find someone staying in Johannesburg coming from the Eastern Cape, someone else coming from Tanzania. There's no family. There's no context of this person, and these people have to figure themselves out, right? And you mentioned something about knowing this person and knowing their family, right? Which is a very crucial thing. There's someone, you know, I know who's who's a chorister. He is very pedantic and very detailed about, he will call out what's wrong, even stop the choir because he will call it out. And a lot of people don't understand this person until they met the father, right? And they saw, no, man, he's not being harsh. It's just the way he was brought up. And it took me to a place where, you drilled in the importance of knowing this person to that level. Because who we are, what we are, and what we have is because of what we have received, right? We are products of how we were brought up. And now here's my question. Oh, I'm sorry.
You know this is the third time.
So I was heading to the question. Here's my question. It took me back to how I grew up. My question is, do you think, my question needs a context.
You gave a whole
Hear me out, sorry.
Speak freely.
Okay, let me.
Sorry, speak freely.
So I noticed when, I was growing up, relationships of different ethnicities, like the colored community and the white community, you'd find that if they are dating, it's okay for them to bring their girlfriend or boyfriend in the home. And as a Xhosa person, I don't know with other, other cultures, it wasn't a thing. You'd have to hide, you'd have to throw a stone, you'd have to ask a girl to call so that you can check, whether, it's safe to communicate. Do you not think that has become one of the issues that have created this stigma? Because from there on, you're not allowed to know the family. And it's something we grow up with, and then all of a sudden you fall in love, you have to marry this person, now you have to meet the family. But in the process of being, you never got that chance to do that. So, cool. Yeah.
I'll ask you a question for you.
Thank you.
All right, so you got it, Sean? Or can I break it down? Okay, let me break it down for everyone else. Everyone else is like, what? So I think because we never get a chance to spend time with people's families whilst we're dating, do you find that maybe that's actually created a limitation and a boundary for us to know the family better regarding the background of where the person is coming from that we're with?
So before I answer, I think a round of applause for Ijan. He's a great he's a great storyteller, you can tell, eh? Okay, so here's the thing. You're correct. The cultures that we come from are restrictive in so many ways. And then I want to be clear about something. The whole concept of who raised me and me turning out to be exactly like that person, at some point it becomes a personal choice. Let me tell you why. Because we now have a lot more information that they had. We know for a fact, for example, one of the things that we do with clients is a concept that we call reparenting oneself, where you're saying, okay, I appreciate how I was raised, but I need to understand the fact that the times I was raised by people that were probably in survival mode, right? Because apartheid on the one end, police dogs chasing them on the other. There was no time for softness and gentleness, right? Yeah. And empathy itself, because there are times where difficult. It was about survival. And so when you're raised by somebody that's in survival mode, you, by extension, become a survivalist. And so even when you've gotten to a point where things are a lot more settled, you have a lot more income, you have a lot more opportunities than they did, because your mentality is survivalist in nature, you are unable to thrive in the way that you should. So here's what we ought to do. At a certain point, especially before we get into committed relationships, we should undertake the work to reparent ourselves. Deal with the traumas of the past, heal from those traumas, make up our minds with regards to who do I want to become in future. So that you don't wake up one day and say, well, I'm this way because my father was this way. No, you can't use that as an excuse because there's so much information out there, so much help that's there to assist yourself, to reparent yourself and become somebody that's better. Now, having said that, culture itself is not cast in stone. Because by definition, culture is a way of life. And as we know, speaking even from an anthropological point of view, culture changes over time. So it's up to us as individuals where we take it. So I'll give an example. I have a niece that's doing really well. I think she's about to complete her master's in psychology. She's at the University of UJ. I made it a point together with my wife to say, listen, the first time you drink, you are going to drink with us. We want to be able to see, well, I actually don't drink. She was drinking with the wife. Sorry, I'm telling on you. We want to see how you react after taking in alcohol. And what that then does is that it has taught her to be responsible, number one. Number two, can we use expletives on this show?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Another concept we taught her, whenever you're invited out for a date, you must always have what we call fuck you money. What is that? If the date doesn't go well, you can transport yourself home, you can pay your own bill. You do not need this guy to do that for you. So because we've allowed that, she trusts us more than she trusts her own parents with her issues, right? But what we've then been able to do is, from a distance, be able to guide her. So that's an example of culture changing over time. I'm not so sure I'm in full support of someone who's 15 years old coming and saying, Daddy, I'm dating. Yeah, I'm not sure. And then bringing Jan van Riebeeck into the house. Eh? That's a little bit touch and go. But if you're sitting here and you're conservative as a parent, I would hope you rethink that. Because go back to my earlier point, if you're raising your child in the way you were raised, you've already failed. What our parents taught us by being so autocratic and so strict, they taught us to lie to them. I have people coming into the consulting room sometimes, and it's quite sad. You hear somebody who's 40 or 50 saying to you, listen, I was raped. This is the first time I'm sharing. And then you try and inquire, okay, why didn't you inform your parents? Then they tell you, well, they probably would have gotten me into a lot more trouble. They would have probably beaten me up or thought it's my fault. So that means then as a parent, you're not a safe space for your child. And once you fail to be a safe space for your child, then of course they hide things from you. They go through difficult things that you know nothing about. Next thing, they commit suicide, you're shocked. Why? Because you've not made yourself a safe space. So I would hope that those of us that are raising children, we become a lot more liberal. Yes, we must instill values. Yes, there are certain principles that we cannot compromise on, but build relationships such that your children can trust you enough with every single thing that they're going through, because then you're able to give the guidance that you're supposed to give. So I would hope that that answers you. Yes, our culture plays a major role in blocking us getting to know people.
Absolutely amazing, Sean. We want to give you just in case you are feeling bad, just to cover that brain of yours. What's so cute is that when you were, the whole time it was going on, the wife was trying to hint like, babe, you might. So her hand was just falling on the leg or something like, babe, you might ask your question, man. That's so cute. I think that's good. Keep that up. Your love is burning beautifully. I can see it. You must keep that going.
Yeah!
It's beautiful. It's nice to see love burning, you know? Keep it. Even the older couples are clapping very hard. Let's go to Tino there at the top.
Okay, I think from our last live, there was a heated last section that we brought up about infidelity, but this time infidelity when it comes from a woman, when a woman cheats, right? So we had so many views towards that. So I think it's good.
The viral video.
And a lot of viral videos. Yeah, so I think it's good that Sean is here. Sean, just a comment from knowing how us men are wired.
Yeah.
And how difficult it is to be cheated on, right? Not justifying our cheating, of course, all right? Not justifying men's cheating, but knowing what you know about a man and how it affects his ego, his pride, everything, when a woman cheats on him. Have you been in, or have you ever provided therapy to a couple that has been in that situation and they managed to recover?
Yeah.
And how?
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to sound controversial, but I should. It's my job. So I think we look at cheating from the wrong lens. A lot of the times, for example, if I were to cheat on my wife, she would go on and look at herself and think to herself, what is missing? Is there something I didn't do? Is there something I did not say? Or is there something that's missing that made him go out? And that's wrong altogether, because cheating in essence is a personal decision, right, that someone makes. It actually, a lot of the times, has nothing to do with you, as opposed to what is happening within this particular individual. So I'll give an example. The couple that I worked with, it was essentially a 10-year marriage. Both of them came from very strict households. Christian, the Christian ethos, the type where anything you try and say, we refer to the Bible first. A situation in which even for them to actually come to me was because the wife insisted, because they were saying, no, let's go to the pastor, and get counseling from the pastor, etc. So the primary difference then is what was happening is the woman stepped out, and the reason why she stepped out had nothing to do with the man. Because he came obviously angry, thinking to himself, I feel less of a man, and I feel like I've not done what I'm supposed to do. I'm guessing that's why she cheated. What is it? Is the sex not good? And I say to him, dude, the reason why she cheated is partly what you're doing now. You're making it about you. When this is a platform to say to her, okay, here's the mic, talk to us. And so when I did the psychoanalysis, we actually realized because she came from a strict background, there was no adolescence in her life. She went from being a child into an adult straight away. Never went clubbing, never did anything out of the ordinary, had not actually tasted alcohol. And then the guy had the same background, brought up in church, never went clubbing, so you can see the picture I'm painting. Until the day she was charmed by a guy with tattoos. It sounds silly, right? But bear in mind, psychologically for her, that guy represents freedom. The marriage represents prison. Because for so long a time she's been stuck in this space. She grew up in that space where you can't move outside of the painted or the dotted lines. You can't be adventurous. You can't do anything crazy. You know the kind of relationships where if you try and come with a different sex style, you'll be asked, where did you see it? It was that kind of conservative relationship. So she stepped out because she was charmed simply by tattoos, by how adventurous the guy was. The guy was, he was a rider, so he had motorcycles, etc. They would go on these motorcycle rides. This guy's just on some, let's do Bible study. Where are you? You must do Bible study. So the boredom crept in. But over and above the boredom, what was actually happening was she felt so stifled, she needed freedom. So when the guy learned to ask questions and stop making it about himself, he then understood what was happening. Okay, we're at a stage where, and by the way, relationships they go through a life cycle, just like families. And we get to that plateau where things are too mundane and they can become boring if you don't spice it up. So I think they were there as well. And then he realized, okay, I'm way too strict. Essentially, she had married her father. That's what had happened. And many of you ladies have actually done that without knowing, unless if you did some work to heal childhood traumas, etc. So when he realized that, okay, it's not about me, it's not that I'm less of a man, he stopped internalizing it and personalizing it, and then they started doing the work to say, okay, how do we undo some of the damage that came from how we were raised? The fact that there's very little creativity, there's boredom, there's no adventure, etc. And I think they're going on, ever since I saw them, it's 5 years now, no issues. But it takes commitment. It also takes understanding that cheating isn't simply because there's something wrong with you. Sometimes there's nothing wrong with you. Sometimes we're happy in the relationship, but I have my own demons that I need to fight. And it's those demons that may come and find me. And that doesn't include you. The same thing with what I was saying. Patterns. Be careful of them. If I'm from a family where all of the men ended up on the same path, then again, it's not about the woman I'm with. Nothing wrong with her. It's essentially me. I have to do some work. I have to do some introspection. So that's essentially what it is. We look at cheating from the wrong angle. It's not always about deficit, about someone being out of line, about somebody not being enough. Sometimes it can be about my own inner demons. It can be about boredom. It can be about me trying to break out of the fact that I've had no adolescence. Now I start trying to be an adolescent at 40 or 50 or whatsoever.
Awesome stuff. Let's give it up. Sean, I think you're going to become a resident of this show.
I don't mind.
Slim, you got a question? I also got one question, so we are almost out of time. So let's try and keep it nice and short.
Okay, we'll get a question from the audience. Just
I got
one
a question from the audience.
And then I'll ask the last question. And then we'll
100%. So I got a question from the audience. The lady was like, listen, I feel like I'm way too beautiful to stand up, so I want to ask, please ask the question for me. So I was like, no problem, you are too gorgeous. Stay there in your beautiful self. I'll ask the question for you. So here's the question. She said, are men intimidated by the success of women? And do men compete with their wives? Are men intimidated by the success of women?
No. I am going to take it when you say men, right? You're talking about a man, not the boys written on a Blair toilet, boys, girls.
Yeah.
So if you're talking about a man, then the answer is no. Why? Because a man, number one, knows who he is, knows what his life purpose is, but also understands that success is actually shared between the two of you. Guys, make me understand. If my wife starts making 6 figures, right? Why is it a problem to me? Isn't that actually much of the burden that's actually been lifted on my end? That's why I said some of you, unfortunately, you married your competition without realizing. If you're married to somebody that competes with you, you shouldn't be with that person. Because what it then means is that they're actually likely to sabotage you in the process. So, number one, you can't compete with somebody that you love. I don't get it. I've never understood it. The whole point is actually to try and make each other better, because when you win, I win indirectly. If the wife gets awards like she does sometimes, I shine as well, because like they say, behind every great woman is a great man. Just as we say, behind every great man is a great woman. So it's about, I need to say this, I remain completely persuaded of the necessary complementarity between men and women. And I do not think for a second that when we raise men, that means, or that should equate to us downplaying women. I don't think it's necessary. I think all of us can win. I think we can share the space. The cake is big enough.
Amazing. I think just to quickly add to that, I think in the dating space especially, I find that a lot of guys, if you meet a woman, she's got a nice car, she's got a great job, she's got her own bag. You know, she doesn't need you to pay for the bill. She's not gonna need 60 grand from you. She'll most probably tell you, listen, are you okay? Do you need something? I find that in those dating spaces and in that kind of occasion, you know, I've heard like a lot of successful women saying, you know, I find that men don't like talking to me or they don't approach me because they're intimidated by my success. And I think it's not necessarily just your success. Sometimes it's just the way you carry yourself.
Yep.
There's some women who you walk like and you look like, don't talk to me. You know, I'm just walking on another level. So sometimes it's not that a man is intimidated by your success. It's just that you are intimidating. He's not intimidated. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
All right, awesome. I'm gonna. Oh, you had a comment. All right, let's go to this sister because we haven't heard from you.
Then this one. There's a lady there also as well.
Oh, okay, cool. Let's come to you. You've had a comment, hey? All right. Hi, how are you? Hey, you guys have relaxed now, eh? Earlier on, this couple was looking like, yo, don't talk to us, we'll talk to you. Now, it's like, it's all right now. I think they ate, they were just hungry.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, I just wanted to take you back. I think, pardon?
Sit straight.
Oh, sit straight. Alrighty, I just wanted to take you back, I think, to the conversation around infidelity, right? I think sometimes you want to meet your partner, right, with their demons and all, and understand where they're coming from. But I think the part maybe we tend to, or I tend to struggle with is the hurt, right? We feel like everybody else. And I think in the beginning you spoke a lot about becoming. I believe in that 110%, right? But in our journey in becoming, right, we hurt people. And maybe as someone who sometimes sits on the hurt side, how do you deal with that? You know, how do you center yourself back to say, I love you despite A, B, and C? It's a hard one. Yeah.
You done?
I'm done. Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you. Great
Awesome.
question.
Thank you. That's a really good question.
Yeah, we've got to be clear though, right? Sometimes when you tolerate a continuation of disrespect, a continuation of a violation of the boundaries you've set, the problem is actually you, because you are allowing it to continue in the sense that you're not putting your foot down, right? So that's number one. I don't want you to sit and think to yourself, I am a powerless victim. No, you're not a victim. The first time it happens, yeah, maybe because you don't know he's going to do that, right? Or you're not expecting it from that individual. But once you've had that conversation to say, dude, this is not cool, and this is definitely a boundary I'm putting up to say this cannot happen again, and then it happens again and again and again, you continuing in that space is essentially you also then saying, well, it's okay, I'll always find ways of dealing with it, right? So let's be clear on that. When we are speaking about doing the hard work, we're not speaking about tolerating abuse. We need to be clear. We're not speaking about tolerating disrespect. We're not speaking about tolerating whatever boundaries you've put in place that may or may not include the fact that if a person cheats, it's over. If that's your boundary, then that should be a boundary that stays, right? Because you put it up for a reason in the first place. Now, having said that, we're bound to get hurt one way or the other, whether we're talking about cheating per se or we're talking about us just becoming better individuals. And so the first thing is to then say, okay, let's have conversations around the hurt. And this is for my brothers. When you are in violation, guys, take it. If you get asked at 3 a.m., okay, so tell me again, where did you meet her? Answer. Answer. Why? Because you put us in this situation. So you need to be accountable. You can't now be saying, yeah, but you've been asking me for 6 months. They have every right to ask because you violated a boundary, number one. Number two, when we speak of forgiving, for me, forgiveness is in 3 parts. Number one, it's you actually verbalizing the fact that you are sorry. Number two, it's you reflecting on what you've done. Number three, it's changed behavior. So you going to buy an expensive gift thinking that ends the story, that's not good enough. These 3 elements must be there. So when you are on the side of the person that's hurt, it's about understanding whatever hurts also instructs. And I'm going to be poetic about this, but you guys are smart, you'll get it. When the pain comes, allow it to visit. But understand this, pain comes for a reason. It comes to teach you specific lessons. When you have learned the lessons that the pain came to teach you, release the pain. It becomes futile for you to constantly sit in a place of hurt and in a place of pain because that pain has taught you the lessons it came to teach. Now you must release it. But I also want to caution, there is this false sense of security and power that lies in being a victim. Be very careful of it. Where you know that, yeah, because he offended me or he hurt me, now I can ask for whatever I want. Be very careful of that false sense of power because sometimes it actually does a lot more damage than it does good. So sit with the hurt, verbalize and express the hurt, ask as many questions as you want, try and understand the situation, but also draw the lessons from the pain. And once you've done that, release the pain because it's pointless now for you to keep going on about it. Is that understood?
Yes, sir. It is. Awesome. Let's take it up to the top there. We're coming to you, Slim.
Oh.
Am I correct? Yeah, we're coming to
it's
Slim.
my turn.
All right, cool.
Oh, it's my turn. Okay, the last question that we are going to ask you, Sean, is how do men deal with depression and what kind of support do they need from their partners? Okay, so how do men deal with depression and what kind of help and assistance do they need from their partners?
Go. Yes.
Okay, so from the stats that I shared, the fact that men in this country are 3.5 times more likely to die from suicide than women. Men in this country are 2.5 times more likely to binge drink than women. Clearly, we're not doing a great job with regards to dealing with depression. So part of what we then need to do is to, and the kind of support we need from our partners is, sometimes it's about just being there. What do I mean by being there? The power of being there. If you'll allow me, I'll make it biblical for a second. When Job was going through the most, he had 3 friends that came over. But the way in which Job was goishing, the degree to which he was goishing, was such that for 7 days and 7 nights, the friends could not utter a single word. So sometimes your support lies in you just being there. You know the business is not doing well. I lost that contract that we were looking forward to. Just be there. And sometimes it includes just saying, listen, I'm here for you, and ending there. Statements such as, how do you know? Are you God? Or statements such as, yeah, better times are coming. You're making promises you can't keep. So just be there, right? So that's number one. We need them to be there through all of the seasons that we go through, because life in its very nature is cyclical. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. Number two, when we are failing to find the words, try and help us to find the words. Encourage us to do journaling, for example. Encourage us to take up sport, exercising. Why? Because if you look at our musculoskeletal structures, you can tell human beings were designed for movement. And so when you exercise, and I'm not talking about exercising like you're going to compete in the Comrades Marathon. I've never understood why people run 90 kilometers. One day I need to interview somebody that does it. I'm talking about just moving your body 3 times in a week. You could do anything. Go to the gym, go walking, go running. It helps in the sense that it helps with the release of all of the tension, all of the stresses, all of the anxiety that's there. And also you get the release of the feel-good hormones, right? After you've completed that particular exercise. So push us to do that. Help us find a healthy outlet. Because when we don't find, the unfortunate thing with trauma is when you don't express it in a healthy, productive way, trauma always finds ways of expressing itself, and sometimes you will end up bleeding on people that didn't cut you. Okay. Did you write that down? Should I? Okay, so we need to be clear. Give us a safe space for us to be able to speak to you openly about our problems, and also then listen twice as much as you speak. So I know sometimes the temptation is to say, it's going to be okay. But sometimes all I really need is somebody that just listens without judgment. When we speak to people, it's not always that we're looking for advice. Sometimes you just want to be heard. That's it. And you actually listening to me might provide the platform for me to actually be able to find words for whatever it is that I'm going through. And so it's important that we do that. So I'm hoping that we've answered that question now.
What about the sex?
Oh, and the sex is important. Yeah. Because it's also, and you can quote me on this. Sex actually helps in the treatment of migraine headaches. Go do the research. If you have a migraine headache, get it on, it's gonna go. I promise you. Why? The release of the pressure, the tension, etc. So that's very important. But also it's important to then say, Slim, sometimes then that's where erectile dysfunction comes in.
Oh, okay.
Because you're thinking, I'm not getting it up because I got it somewhere. Can't you know I'm depressed, right? Mm-hmm. So be mindful of that. As much as for men, a lot of the times we get attracted, we get turned on by the physical. Sometimes the psychological also turns us on or turns us off.
Yeah.
So it's important that and I want to, just as a way of ending, all the men in the house, all the women in the house, please go get tests done. Make sure you know what's happening internally. There are so many silent killer diseases that grow in silence. So it's important that we always check in on our physical health as well as our mental health.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I just saw this guy leaning on something. Hey, I got a headache. It's like, I've had a headache the whole afternoon, you know? I showed you hooked up people today. I'm telling you, tonight, gents, we are winning. All right. right. Just to close off the show, guys, thank you so much to everybody who joined us here tonight. Thank you for coming through to being part of the African Male Iris live podcast recording. Please give yourselves a big round of applause for coming tonight. Thank you. And whilst we are on that tip of applauses, we want to thank Sean so much, our guest this evening. I think today wouldn't have been what it was without your contribution, without all your input. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sean.
And of course, to our three anchors of the show, DJ Tino, Press Soul, Slim. Thank you so much for creating this platform so that we can all get together and really have a platform where we can express ourselves freely and to really enjoy ourselves. Now, I know there's a lot of people here that have got burning questions. I think there's about 20, there's 20 people I walked past going, I think I want to say something. And I was like, Slim did say, please don't, Brad did say, don't wait till the last minute. And Velen waited till the last minute. So we want to give you an opportunity, please, on your table. There are our African Male Iris forms. Please fill those in. Put your questions on that so that we can actually help us design the next show based on what you want to talk about. So that on the next live podcast, guess what? Your question or your comment will actually be right at the top there. So please do fill it in. I'll come around. We'll come around. The team will collect those forms from you if you fill those forms in, and we'll collect your questions. Please do follow us on all our social pages. That is at the African Male Iris on all social platforms. It'll be really great to do that. I'm going to send it back to the top there for your closing comments, gents. Right back to you, Slim.
The motherland, the African man. Long as I'm alive, I'ma make a plan. Strongholds to break, got long walks to take. Got no votes to make, we don't bet, we pray. Hey, African man, yeah.